Hello, it's Evan again. Just a quick video. It's been a while since I put up one about my ships, and I do hope to do a battle report soon. But I thought I'd just make a quick video looking at the ships I've painted. Now, as you can probably tell, I am not a miniature painter. I'm not a very particularly talented one. Warhammer came out when I was at school, and a few of my friends really got into it and got quite good at it. That was something that I never quite did until recently last year. And I saw Black Seas by Warlord Games, and I thought those boats look pretty. I'll give it a go, and I did indeed. And well, the results are average. But one thing that the Warlord Games suggested was they suggested for their game to keep the ships fairly uniform, to have the British ships all be a sort of a baby spew and black colour, and the French ships have a little bit of blue on them, stuff like that. And that's a great idea for running a really good game. But I thought that was a real missed opportunity. I mean, if you're going to be hand painting these ships anyway, you may as well make them bespoke, mightn't you? And for me, specifically ships that stood out to be as being significant in the maritime history of Australia, where I'm from. So I'll show you just a few of them today, not all these ones, but just a few. Tell you what boats inspired the paint scheme. Obviously, the boats won't exactly match the type of boats that they were, but what inspired the paint scheme, and yeah, and how I went with it. So, hope you enjoy. Okay, so this first ship is a brig. It came in the starter set for Black Seas. It is just a simple brig, and I'm going to use this one for scale with all the other ships involved, but I thought I'd mention it first in the first place. So this ship's colouring is based on the Supply, the HMS Supply. It was a ship that was launched in 1759. Its most famous journey was to Australia with the First Fleet in 1788. It would eventually be decommissioned in 1792, but it would live out a little economic career on the Thames in 1806. Based on the First Fleet headed off, it was a series of obviously transport ships, most of the ships carrying convicts and supplies in order to set up a colony in New South Wales. Exactly why the colony was set up is complicated. In part, it's because they want to keep an eye on possible trade routes to hold off against the French. And yeah, it was a little bit to get rid of convicts, but they had another more permanent way of getting rid of convicts. So really, these convicts were just being used as sort of cheap labour. They set up this colony on the far side of the world. So anyway, the supply went out with these ships. It itself did not carry too many convicts. It was more of a sort of support vessel, a defensive vessel for the convoy. It headed out with the First Fleet, and it was actually one of the first ships to sail into Botany Bay. Let's have a look at the date. It was in obviously 1788, but specifically it got in on like the 18th or something. Yeah, the 18th into Botany Bay. It was a much more reliable ship than the rest of the ships. There was the Sirius, which was a bigger, more significant vessel to the fleet. That was the flagship. But in the end, it was the Supply who got in first, because it was a little bit more hardy, I guess. And which proved to be the case for the first couple of years of the colony's existence. The Sirius would eventually get pretty waterlogged and pretty much just die on them while they're out there. It would be the Supply that would actually end up sailing around, doing some pretty important missions. It would sail back to South Africa quickly to get some more supplies when supplies were running low at one point. It would then also make journeys up to Norfolk Island and all up and down the coast of New South Wales. And considering it started its life just sort of, cruising around the coast of England and up the Thames, it certainly was punching above its weight with regards to its duties in this colony in New South Wales. Eventually, it would be decommissioned in 1792, something like that. It would sail back to England. It would spend the rest of its life basically being a coal ship on the Thames. So I like to think of it as a nice retirement after a very worthwhile career. But anyway, like I said, this is one of my first paint jobs ever. It is got the black stripe, the baby spew yellow, and this black stripe at the back is what, as far as paint jobs of the Supply I could find, that's what it was meant to have looked like. I haven't gotten the sails to bow yet. I've recently gotten advice from a Facebook group how to do that. So future ships, I'll try and get that going. Or if I need to repair sails, I will. I flagged it up with the British naval flags. I'm not exactly sure if that's what the series would have, but just thought, well, this will be one of my little British brigs. And yeah, like I said, this is one of the first ships I've ever really painted. So you could probably tell, but I enjoyed it, and it does the job for the tabletop. It certainly looks good from about 3 feet away. But yeah, the Supply. This next ship came in a later box set I got for Christmas after the initial box set. It is a ketch, as you can see, a mortar ship. However, its hull reminded me of another ship, so I painted it up in a different colour scheme, like for a famous ship, even though the rigging and all that's all completely wrong. But I liked the hull, and it looked just right for the infamous Endeavour, HMS Endeavour. Now, of course, the Endeavour is a pretty famous ship in general, in history. It is indeed the ship that Captain Cook used on his famous voyage out to the east coast of Australia and around the Pacific in general. So the Endeavour apparently was launched in 1764. The Navy bought it up in 68, 4 years later, and eventually would be decommissioned in 1774. But yes, it's most famous for its 1770 voyage. Cook and his crew headed out in about 1760-something, late 1760s, out to Tahiti. Well, out there, they got a secret mission to go south and do some exploring. Obviously, Captain Cook was not the first person to arrive in Australia. Aside from all the Dutch and possibly other people that rocked up in Australia beforehand, the indigenous crew had rocked up thousands and thousands of years before that. So he wasn't the first person to discover Australia. That's kind of ridiculous. But he was one of the first British people to map it in an extensive way, to make it kind of more useful to identify places for colonies from the British Empire to come and land later. So it set out to Tahiti. They got their secret mission to go explore the Pacific. Cook went out with his crew, and in April 1770, they sailed into Botany Bay, being the first sort of British crew to rock up on the east coast. Other British people had rocked up before. I think Dampier. Was it Dampier? I can't remember. But Cook obviously has a very significant part in Australia's colonial history, being the person to sort of map and make a lot of first contact with Indigenous people on the east coast of Australia. Sailed up the coast, crashed into a coral reef, the Great Barrier Reef, had to go ashore for a little while and do some repairs, headed to the north of the continent, infamously declared it terra nullius. Well, he didn't, but his work would lead to that. He certainly claimed the coast for England, and then he headed off home in the Endeavour. So like I said, I really like this ship. It's sort of high back here, sort of was reminiscent of the Endeavour, what we know of it and the replicas of it, so that's kind of why I went with it. Painting it with a little bit of yellow there. Yellow trim, the blue. It's just a great paint job, in all honesty. I really like the colour scheme. Now, obviously, how I did it, that's left to be debated, but it certainly is a striking colour scheme. The flags are all crazy and wrong. That's because I usually use this one more as a privateer ship. So we've got like an American flag there and a Spanish flag up here. So it's nuts. But the colour scheme is kind of what I was sort of going for here. Now, of course, the Endeavour is a controversial ship. For some people, it is emblematic of scientific discovery, of exploration, of striving out into great vast ocean and nothing but a little tub, your engineering, your courage, and yeah, sailing across the seas on epic adventure. But for a lot of other Australians, it does represent the just complete destruction of a way of life, the decimation of thousands and thousands of people. Not the ship itself, but what it symbolises, the arrival of not just Europeans to the continent of Australia, but that whole tragic history of decimation. So what do I see it symbolising? Well, in all honesty, it's both. It is both a ship of scientific discovery. It is also a symbol of horror to a lot of Australians. So it's a bit of both. Regardless, it's certainly worth being a part of the collection. The colour scheme, like I said, is kind of cool looking. And it's just worth a little bit of a wink and a nod, and remember that it is, for good and bad, a part of Australia's history and heritage. So we have here another frigate. This came in the Black Seas starter box as well. And this frigate has been coloured up to be roughly the colours of the Investigator. HMS Investigator, Matthew Flinders' exploration ship. It's most famously captained by Matthew Flinders as he navigated around Australia. A lot of exploration. It is a ship that has had a lot of different names and a lot of different, long history. It was first launched in 1795 as the Fram. It would then be bought by the British military and dubbed the HMS Investigator. It was dubbed the Xenophon and then the Investigator later. So it was bought in 1798 and called the Investigator in 1801. And it would then, from 1801, do its famous sort of voyage to Australia. It would then be sold off in 1810, but it would still be around for quite a while. It wouldn't be scrapped until 1872. And part of the reason why I chose to paint this frigate up as an Investigator is actually it's relatively similar looking and similar scale and dimension to what these frigates in this box set was. Now, there's a couple of different paint schemes I saw for the Investigator, but this one I particularly liked with just more or less the black and brown all the way along the hull of the ship. And then just that little bit of blue just highlighting the end of it, which I really just like the look of. I think it's a rather pretty ship. I flagged, again, completely wrong. I use it as a privateer ship in my games, so it's got the British flag, French flag, British merchant flag, so it's a bit nuts, but again, it's been used as a privateer. I did a little bit of, get a whole bunch of lifeboats in these things. So I put a whole bunch of lifeboats on there, but I also stuck one on the side because I just kind of like the look of that. So this is the Investigator. So Matthew Flinders most famously sailed this ship. He sailed to Australia. I believe he was the first British person to sail all the way around Australia in one go. That was it, wasn't it? Anyway. Look, in all honesty, I mainly painted it up because I kind of like the colour scheme and the design of the ship. But yes, he would go on to sort of help chart a lot of the Australian coastline and do his part for the colonial overtaking of the continent. And yeah, again, I got to be honest with you, the main reason why I'm showing you this ship is it's probably my favourite paint scheme. Again, first time ever doing this kind of stuff, so it's a little bit shoddy, but I just like the colours. I want to show it off, to be honest. So yeah, that's the Investigator. Okay, last ship for now, and this is probably the most outlandish. I actually probably kind of like this one a little bit better than the Investigator, but it's certainly, at the very least, it's new. I've probably bit off a bit more than I can chew as far as my skill level goes. So this ship came as a part of the merchant ship box set. I kind of liked it because it had like an older style design to it with that much higher back. It looks like something more like Sir Francis Drake would be sailing rather than Nelson. And yeah, I liked that. It is a sort of, in the game, like a medium-sized vessel. And like I said, it looks like an older style, so I couldn't resist. I've coloured it. Its colour scheme and its design overall is kind of meant to be like the Duyfken. Duyfken? I can't say Dutch very well. It's a Dutch ship. Duyfken means little dove. And this is certainly not a little dove. This is like the mega Duyfken, because it's a lot bigger than the actual Duyfken actually was. What is Duyfken? It is believed to be one of the first European ships to actually have a recorded landfall. I think it's landfall on the Australian coast. It was heading up to the sort of Spice Islands in the East Indies. It's a Dutch ship. It was going there, spice thing, in what is now Indonesia, or parts of Indonesia. Is it Indonesia? It could be a bit further north. Anyway, and as it was sailing around, it came south and spotted the coast of what we now know was North Australia, around sort of is it Queen in the Gulf of can't remember the name of the Gulf between Queensland and Northern Territory. I'm so sorry for all the people who live there. It spotted it. It made landfall, And yeah, first European ship to, as far as we know, ever actually do that. Now, the Duyfken was a lot smaller than this model represents. It was tiny. They've got replicas of this ship all around the place, but of most famous, the one I saw was in like Sydney Harbour, and it's tiny. It's unbelievable that people were doing some of these circumnavigation journeys in what was a little more than like a ferry, like, you know, a little city ferry. You know what I mean? So yeah, it would have been much smaller, but I borrowed what we know of some of the suggested paint schemes of the ship. So the use of the red, the use of the white, little blue stripes on the side. So again, it is not at all a close replica of what the ship actually was like, but rather just the inspiration of the colors. I used a lighter brown with the wood as well. I love this sort of boom hanging off the side here. And I also made my own little Dutch flags, which, yeah, they're a little adorable, let's be honest. But I'm happy with the overall result. I love the different splash of orange that now exists in my fleet of mainly red, white, and blue. So it's nice to have a little bit of a difference. Technically, the Dutch flags at this point did not have orange. It was actually, I believe, blue, white, and red. But again, it's just that slightly bit of different colour, a little bit of pop on the board. It's meant to be a merchant ship anyway, so But no, I like the colour scheme of this ship again. It is one of my preferred ships to have out playing because it just looks so pretty. The Duyfken, we didn't get some dates on that. It's much older. We're talking like 1595 compared to all the other ships in the sort of series. It was tiny. Compared to what came later, and certainly a lot more smaller than this ship here. But no, I like my little Duyfken, or I think I call it like the Megafiken or something, I don't know. But it's certainly bigger and it's certainly prettier. But yeah, there it is. So there's the ship. Again, so much for watching. Yeah, these are the ships we're playing with. They're all in theory named after actual real ships, or not quite all of them. Some of them are a little bit more of the imagination. But a lot of them are based on ships in actual Australian history. And if I make some more of these Let's Play battle reports, naval vessels, you'll see more of these come out into play. And again, this is the first time I've ever done miniature type stuff. So yeah, it's a bit scrappy, it's a bit dodgy. But I'm enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun painting these things up and learning this new hobby. And I hope you enjoy watching this amateur share his toys. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you, or you'll see me some other time. All right, bye.